Recorded live from Portland, Oregon, it's the Transamorous Network podcast. Let's get it on.
Come on down!
It's the Transamorous Network!
The show! Right. I'm Shannon.
I'm Perry.
Oh. And you know us already anyway, so whatever.
Yeah.
Hi.
What's up?
Welcome.
I'll tell you what's up. TV is changing.
Yeah. TV is changing for the change the channel.
TV is changing.
Bring it on.
Finally, we're getting more brothers and sisters up on the boob tube.
Yes, and members of the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
GLAAD recently released an announcement.
And GLAAD is?
I don't know what that acronym stands for. Do you know?
Let's see if it's in the article. I don't.
GLAAD is you guys know what GLAAD is. You've tuned into this show. If you've tuned into this show, you've got to know what GLAAD is.
Why do they have to know when we don't even know?
Thank you.
You have to know, but we don't
Gay
have to know.
Lesbian Alliance. Where the hell is it?
Gay Lesbian Alliance for the Advocacy of, I don't know. We're taking up too much of the show. Let's keep on. You'll get it in a minute. So anyway, they came out with this announcement that said that more than ever before, trans people and people of color, or did they say specifically black? No, they said black. Holy shit. Black people and trans people, yes, are seeing more airtime on TV than ever before.
So they're actually beginning to represent the demographic of their viewership, which is good. And they haven't got there yet.
No, they haven't got there yet, but they're moving in the right direction. Yeah. And I heard this announcement earlier this week, and one of the reasons a pundit had suggested for why this is happening is because there's so many channels out there, you can't fill it all up with white people.
No, and I also think it's important, and let's just talk, like, this is business. And so I think that they understand, networks now understand, that in order to have a show that is going to be popular, you need to have characters that your audience can identify with.
Yeah, and in order for you to have visitor or viewers who are going to keep on watching your shows have to be interesting. And frankly, some of the shows that are out right now that feature all black casts, like Atlanta, or there's another one on HBO called Insecure with Issa Rae. Oh my God, that show is so funny. These shows are really interesting, and they're showcasing elements of society that we haven't seen before, like full-on black cast. And what's interesting, this same pundit pointed out, was that in these shows, you don't have, like you have in typical white sitcoms or other shows, where you have all white cast and then some member of the cast has a black friend. In these shows, you have all black cast, and it's for real. So you don't have a lot of black people with a lot of white friends, or even a token white friend. It's all black all the time.
On these shows.
Yeah, on these shows.
They don't even have a white friend?
Nope.
You gotta have a token white.
Nope.
No, right?
Nope.
That seems retarded.
I love it.
Bass backwards.
I love it. And so it's funny.
You can't say the R word either.
Huh?
Don't say the R word.
Oh, that's right.
You can't say the R word anymore. It's developmentally disabled.
That would refer to a person specifically, not a thing.
Right on.
That thing
is
retarded. Crap, my fucking word. That's not what the fuck I want! Grown ass woman. God damn it.
I love you.
So GLAAD formally stood for the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation.
Oh,
so it's GLAAD will no longer be, I found another article, GLAAD will no longer be an acronym for that.
Oh, it's just GLAAD now.
I guess
there is no
just
acronym. It's just
GLAAD.
GLAAD. Okay, cool. So I'm looking forward to the day close. Now, someone took me to the carpet on our YouTube channel about comparing how Hollywood was treating trans people, to comparing how society was Hollywood was treating black people. That person took me to task because they thought I was saying that the trans plight and the black plight were the same, which I wasn't saying. But I'm going to make another a statement that same person is probably going to take wrong, and that is this. I think the gay, lesbian, and trans movement is closely following the civil rights movement in terms of its ability to gain its freedoms. And I think in the same way, relative to this article, we're going to see closely following on the heels of all these black TV shows, we're going to see a full-on trans-casted television show.
I believe that.
Really? That would be
I
awesome.
think
Wouldn't
it'll
that be
hap-
awesome?
I think it'll happen.
And for all you producers out and directors out there that are thinking about that, give me a call. We'll connect. Let's do lunch.
Right?
Shannon, your trick.
To be or not to be. I can
I guess I would agree with that, though, Perry, your statement that the path towards equality is similar. And in that, even just to be really simple, how it's incremental.
Yeah.
And how it's step by step and not everything comes all at once.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, you got to be ignorant if you don't agree with this. The civil rights movement has paved the path for every rights group that has come after it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Duh.
Yeah. And so there's no reason to think that the trans movement would not be following, when you look at the high level organized groups like HRC, would not be following the same strategies, maybe modified for the modern times.
Agreed.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. With,
Well, that wasn't very
alterations
exciting.
to-
Let's just all agree the whole time. Yay.
So yeah, so it's interesting. Your point is well taken. We're not far enough yet in the trans community. It's interesting though. Transparent, the show on Amazon featuring that guy who played
Can't think of it. We all know who
Jeremy
we're talking about. Yeah,
Jeremy Tamber.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They have oh fuck, I'm not gonna get them all. There's like 5 different legitimate trans actors on that show.
Yeah.
On that show?
Yes.
Yes.
Not just Jeremy Tamber. He's not trans, but
But
throw
like,
him out.
His roommate.
His
friend,
roommate,
some of the
Candace
other
Kane
girls.
is on there.
Oh,
Harry
the
Neff
other
is on
girls.
there. There's the woman who just recently won the USA Queen pageant. Can't remember her name, but she's on there. That's 4. And I'll just throw it out. There's another one on there I didn't see, but I bet they're on there.
Well, I mean, she's gone to like support groups, and everyone
Yes,
in the support group
yes.
will actually be transgender.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's an inevitable outcome. We're going to see a transgender, all cast a transgender sitcom of some sort or another, and we're getting close to that drama. Her Story by Jen Richards.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's such a great show.
Is it really?
I haven't
gotta
watched it yet.
start
I
watching
You
it
guys
too.
gotta watch that show. It's so good. Anyway, so yeah, we haven't gone far enough, but we're getting there with the trans community, and the fact that the black community is being well represented these days with shows like Atlanta and Insecure is just freaking awesome.
Right. It's way better than it was, but it still has its own ways to go,
Correct,
too.
correct.
There are more black men on television than there are black women.
Well
At least
said,
that's-
sister. Well said.
So that goes the way of equality too.
That's
Yes.
exactly right.
Black men got the right to vote before women got the right to vote.
Right.
That's right.
That seems to be a black man got the presidency before a woman got the
Yeah,
presidency.
any kind of woman. Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting because when you break it down, let's take the black community. I'm sure we could do the same thing with the trans community. So if you say, okay, black straight men have a lot of airtime on TV right now, and they do. If you say black gay men, like out gay men, not so sure. But there's a movie that's come out already called Moonlight about this black young man who it's a coming of age story. It covers how he grows up to come and embrace his gayness, and it's kind of like the black version of Brokeback Mountain.
So I have a question. I have a question because being the only white person in the room, do you think socially it's more difficult to come out, whether that be any one of the LGBTQ, if you're a person of color? Do you think it's easier, harder? And I know that it's hard because you don't have my lived experience, I don't have yours, but just from what you've seen in society.
My
what do you think?
personal experience, I think most ethnic trans women would say it's, or even gay people, that it is harder within our communities because, especially the Latin and the black community especially, men are very macho and machismo, and they're encouraged through culture to be that way. And when you come out as gay or trans, you're seen not the same anymore.
As lesser.
Yeah.
Lesser
Absolutely.
than, and you're not a real man now because you're gay or
What are your
whatever.
thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. It's hard to say because harder to come out than what? Than white people coming out?
Yeah, and I know that's it's such a hard argument to have, and really it's
I
not one
think
you
it
can ever have because
yeah.
you can't live both ways.
Yeah. I think it kind of did. I'm not gay, obviously, and I'm not trans, obviously. When I think
Neither of those things are obvious.
when I think about it, I think it might be harder at first But when someone comes out, the community that's in those communities, I think, is stronger than
Do you think so?
white communities.
Well, I kind of have to agree with that in a way too, because in our last show where we talked about
With
the
that.
percentage of
Oh yeah.
how
racial
many
makeup.
the racial makeup,
Mm-hmm.
that somewhere in that article it also stated that they've noticed more ethnic trans people are more likely to stay within their ethnic culture,
Right.
within their ethnic community. Let's say a black trans woman from Alabama moved here to Portland, she would be more likely to settle into a black neighborhood or around more black people than she would be to settle into an all-white neighborhood. Just because, and this is my personal belief, that you have cultural link. You know how that culture and group works.
Yeah.
I mean, you expect, if you expect black men to treat you this way because that's the way it was back home, then you already have an upper hand on what might to expect.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the counterpart. Like, let's say, because this situation doesn't currently exist. Well, that's not true. In some cities, it does. Let's say that you're a transgender person of color and you move to Portland, and there's two different neighborhoods you can move to. You can move to the black neighborhood so that you can be with people with the same race, or you can move to the transgender neighborhood because such a thing exists. Which do you think you'd then be the same predisposition would exist, or do you think you would then?
I think it would go into a personal feeling.
Me
because
too.
I think some people want to assimilate into a stealth life
Yeah.
as opposed to be I live on tranny block.
Yeah, exactly.
See,
right?
That's such a powerful argument, because I would have immediately said no. Everybody who is transgender would want to go to the transgender neighborhood because one of your basal instincts as a person is to remain safe, and that would probably be one of the safer areas for you to be.
Interesting.
I would also.
But would it be?
Oh.
Would a high concentration of a targeted group in one space
I would say yes.
be safer or more
Yes.
targeted?
No, I'd say be safer, because there are examples. There are gayborhoods, as we call them, throughout the United States.
I used to live in
And yeah,
I did.
And they are, well, they are safer in certain communities. And that depends a lot more upon the community than it does the neighborhood or the gayborhood. But I'm sorry, to step back to something you said earlier, as yes, it would be more difficult to transition, and then we kind of backpedaled for that if you're a person of color, because there's a point here, a really important point that I want to make. I would say that I would agree initially with your statement that it is more difficult to transition as a person of color, and for one reason and one reason alone, and this is backed up by the stats, is that occurrences of violence are higher among transgender people of color than they are transgender white people.
Yes.
And they're not just a little bit higher.
Yeah. And
I mean, a person of color, first and foremost, is having to deal with however society is treating them based on their color. First and foremost, that's usually the first thing you see.
Yeah.
And then secondary would be their identity and their other parts, or the transgenderism, I love that word, and so that it would go into that combination of things.
This is such a complex argument.
Very complex argument.
Race is a complex subject because we make it such a huge divide in who we are. We're all part of the human race. We're all one. We all bleed red. We all have bones and skin. We all have, we all have
fears. We all have desires. We all have stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Some stories, have negative things attached to them, and some are more negative than others.
Remy, tell me a story about our sponsor.
Our
Got
sponsor.
14 minutes.
Our sponsors are owned, the Velvet Rope, by a black and a white couple. So
That's
they're
true.
mixed. So that goes to show,
Alexis
again,
and
Matt and Alexis,
Matt.
they are a mixed couple. So if we're talking about race, just throwing that out there. It is a black-owned business. Hey, whatever. The Velvet Rope, Portland's premier adult sex-positive social club. You can find them at www.thevelvetropepdx.com. Go ahead.
And don't forget that if you go to the Velvet Rope here in Portland and you mention that you heard about them on the Trans Amorous Network, you will receive 50% off your membership.
Boom.
That's right.
Half.
Biddy.
Fitty.
All right. See you next time.
Until next time,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.